Okay, I would like to welcome you all for our first SPACE4Cities webinar, Demystifying Satellite and Space Technologies for Cities and Communities. My name is Gluhak. I work for Agile Smart Cities, which is a network of cities which are working towards common interoperable data ecosystems. Today's seminar is organized by one of the projects that we are partner of, which is SPACE4Cities. And this project is EU funded and has started last month. It's basically a project that explores the potential of space technologies and data from space for cities. Obviously, cities have been using data for some time, on one side to make better decisions, to also improve public service delivery, and to make obviously as well cities more sustainable, resilient, and livable. And space tech and data from space is obviously a new frontier that cities can take advantage of. And it offers many opportunities, but obviously the potential of those technologies is currently not fully understood. And we would like to take you with this webinar and a series of webinars actually onto a journey to basically explore this together. On one side, you will be learning more about European space tech and the nature of services. On the other side, you will be also gaining a better market understanding of space technologies and the potential for urban development. And obviously, what's more important is we will start thinking about how these technologies can actually help solve challenges on the ground. And you'll have the opportunity as well to interact with experts and other city representatives as part of this. And I want to highlight really that the audience for this session are really local authorities, cities, regions, municipalities. And we are obviously organizing a variety of these webinars in the coming months, and we want to take you on this journey. Now, today's agenda is the following. On one side, we have an overview, obviously, of the SPACE4Cities project, which is behind the webinar series. But then you will learn a bit more about what satellite technologies are currently being offered by the EU Agency for Space program. And then we will dive into markets for space solutions for urban environment applications and benefits. So you will learn about these and some examples from it. And we'll obviously wrap up this discussion later on with some Q&As. So you will not be asking questions directly after the talks, but we'll have a conversation at the end of these three presentations. Our speakers for today are Renske, Sylvie, Alain, and Juho-Pekka. They are all project partners as well in SPACE4Cities. And they are all basically focused on sharing some of the content with you today. Okay. Obviously, some rules, please. I can already hear a lot of audio switching in. So we've hosted this webinar series just on a normal Zoom channel to enable some interactivity later. It's not like a one-way webinar. So there are a few rules really I would like everyone to remind. First of all, please keep your mic off and also your camera off for as long as the presentations go. If you have any sort of questions that you would like to ask, you can use the direct messages for interactions here in the chat and also potentially post some questions to the speakers. And obviously, at the end of the three presentations or three sessions, you will be able to also get some opportunity to ask questions to the speakers at the panel. Just wanted us to frame that this is a first webinar in a series of different webinars that we are organizing. There will be, in the coming 3 months, further webinars. Today is a more generic overview, but the webinars then in April, May, and June will focus on specific challenges that cities are having, like climate adaptation, mobility in urban planning, and green space management. And also, this is already an early heads up. We are also planning to organize a workshop co-located to the Urban Futures Notre Dame in June, where we will present some of the use cases that the cities in our project have worked on, and invite you as well to bring in your requirements and new ideas that we can consider for the further future of this project. Okay, with this in mind, I would like to obviously end my presentation here and hand over then to our first speaker, which is Renske. Hi, Renske.
Hi, thanks very much. I'll share my screen. Let me see. Here we go, right? Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Renske Martijnse-Hartikka. I am the coordinator of this SPACE4Cities project, brand new project. I work for Virium Helsinki, which is the innovation organization owned by the city of Helsinki. And I'll give you a short introduction on this new project, and feel free to also be in touch afterwards if you have any more questions. But let's start maybe a bit with the mission of SPACE4Cities. So we're going to be, in the next 3.5 years, carrying out a pre-commercial procurement. So it's a type of innovation procurement in which a buyers group of 5 cities and regions procures the development of very innovative solutions that use satellite data, European satellite data, for better management, more dynamic management of public areas, green spaces, infrastructure, and also for to increase the overall resilience of the cities, for example, in relation to disruptive events or weather. We hope with this procurement, with this project, there will be much higher uptake of these kind of space-based solutions in cities, because it's quite an unknown and underused tool or source of data at the moment. It was really nice to see that there was we had close to 200 registrations for this webinar, which is, I think, great, and it really shows that there's a high interest in the topic. So thanks to all of you for joining in. I want to emphasize that as this is a PCP, so pre-commercial procurement, these solutions that we look for from companies that will work within this project, they cannot be on the market yet. So we look really for highly innovative, beyond the state-of-the-art tools, products, solutions that really answer the needs of cities. And that's the phase where we're in at the moment, still to kind of define those needs. On the right, you see that the budget is significant, I would say 5.2 in total, but notably close to 3 million euros budget for suppliers, companies, SMEs, startups, also larger companies, also research organizations. They can apply or they can be part of a consortium. So I mentioned that it's a long project, 3.5 years. It goes through various phases that I'll come back to in one of the next slides. But let me first tell you a bit about the buyers group or the project partners in general. So we have on the side of the municipalities, the city of Amsterdam, municipality of Guimarães in Portugal, and then there's the Regional Development Fund of Attica, so it's the region of Athens. And then District 9 and Forum Virium Helsinki, they are agencies part of the cities of Ghent and Helsinki, respectively. And then in addition, OASC, Open and Agile Smart Cities, are the host of this webinar, global network of communities through whom an additional 10 replicator cities or regions will join the project later on. And last but not least, Aerospace Valley, an expert partner from whom you will hear in this webinar as well. So let me tell you a bit how the process is going to look like. So this is how we'll kind of do this project in the next years together with the companies. So right now we're kind of before phase 0 still. We are still refining the use cases, identifying the needs together with all our city partners. But from June onwards, we start with this open market consultation. We start actively engaging with potential suppliers to kind of validate if what we want, if our ambitions are high enough, if it's innovative or too innovative, maybe if it's feasible within the given timeline, within the given budget. So just in general, to engage with the market, make them aware of this big upcoming tender that we have, because in January 25 is the plan for now. We will have this tender opening up, this 2.8 million euro tender for 3 to 3 months. It will be open and get hopefully as many offers as possible. And then we have a selection process. And by kind of May 25, we will have signed agreements with, it says here 18, it might be a bit more, 18 to 20, let's say, suppliers who then get started in this phase 1 solution design, which is more or less a desktop exercise, a couple of months. Then, excuse me, there is an evaluation process, and half of the suppliers we need to say goodbye to, and we end up with 9 or 10 suppliers in phase 2, where they develop a prototype of their solution for about half a year. Yet another evaluation process, and yet another 50% of the suppliers that leaves, and we end up with a group of 5 suppliers who could come from all over Europe. Hopefully they will. And they will test their solutions in the buyers group cities in real life conditions, plus also in the replicator cities. So there will be lots of opportunities for testing. And after this, the solutions are then expected to be commercialized and ready for let's say, real procurement. So you see that with each phase, the number of suppliers drops, the budget per supplier increases. Now, as I mentioned before, we are still in the process of our needs. I can already say that kind of in general, cities need to better understand, to learn more about the potential of space data, basically, and how it can be applied to manage public areas. And we need to, our cities in Europe in general, to better react faster, react in a more dynamic way to all kinds of unexpected events. So ideally, we'd want some near real-time management tools for infrastructure, traffic, green areas, etc. Just like tools that can help with, for example, with predictions and forecasts related to the management of municipalities in general. In this workshop that Alex mentioned, and in the next webinars, we'll get to talk a little much more about all the different types of use cases and needs. So that will be the topic of the next half year. Let me slowly round up, I think, by asking you, encouraging you to get involved in Space4Cities. So thanks first and foremost, all of you, all the cities and regions that registered to this webinar. There were many, and it shows that it's a hot topic, it's a relevant topic. Also, I don't know, there will probably be also companies on the line. Keep an eye out for the open market consultation from June to October, because we want to hear from you and we want to actively engage with you, especially from the summer onwards. And in general, for everyone on the line, do follow our LinkedIn page, because that's the place where we will also announce all kinds of events, also conferences where maybe some of our partners might be attending or speaking, any webinars, any such any reports that we'll be publishing, etc. LinkedIn page as well as the website, and on the website you can also register for the newsletter. So warmly welcome to stay in touch with us actively for the next years, and I think I'll wrap it up with that. That's it from my side, and I'll gladly, Alex, pass on to the next speaker. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Renske, for the good, excellent overview. May I ask now to obviously unshare your screen if you can, and then we can get our next speaker ready, which is Sylvie from Aerospace Valley, and we'll dive into the first, I guess, space-related topic, really. So yeah, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Sylvie Teysseyre. I'm from...
Sylvie, just a moment. I think you're sharing it in a presentation mode with a preview with notes. So if you can just focus on the main slide, that would be great. Apologies. Yeah. So.
Better now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm Sylvie Teysseyre. I'm from Aerospace Valley. I'm in the space team and I'm space data economy data manager. So, next slide. So just some few words on Aerospace Valley that take part in the consortium of the SPACE4Cities project. So Aerospace Valley is a leading aerospace cluster in Europe with more than 860 members, including leading groups, SME, research entity, academic, and public entities. It covers 3 main sectors: aeronautic, space, drone, and 5 ecosystems of excellence concerning structure and material, factory, embedded system, propulsion and energy. And the last one is the digital, and especially data management and AI. So now we are going through the right subject of our webinar. I'm going to talk about Copernicus. So Copernicus is the most ambitious Earth observation program in the world. It's an European program, and it has begun in 2010. And today it's delivering 16 terabytes of high quality data every day. The heart of the program, we have the Sentinel satellite family, delivering all types of data. Copernicus program supports also 10,000 jobs and generates billions of euros in economics. So, as you can see on the image, we have several Sentinel. Sentinel-1 is an all-weather day and night radar mission covering the land and the ocean. It's also used for monitoring floods, monitoring glacier in motion, monitoring iceberg snapping off. With Sentinel-1, we can also monitor oil spill or secure maritime area. On ground, we monitor also deformation from earthquake and volcanoes. Sentinel-2 is a different type of satellite. It's an optical mission used for monitoring agriculture and crops, monitoring coastal erosion and algal blooms, monitoring deforestation, and also monitoring urbanization. Sentinel-3 measures ocean ice, atmosphere composition. On sea, it measures also surface temperature and surface height to track evolution of the sea level near the coast. On ground, it measures also the temperature, allowing to prevent the resumption of forest fire and to monitor heat waves. Sentinel-3 can also image contrail, cyclone, or hurricane. Sentinel-4 and 5 allow monitoring atmosphere and in particular trace gases affecting the air we breathe, methane emission, and even nitrogen dioxide. It also ozone holes, track aerosols, from fine sulfur dioxide from volcanoes or desert dust. Sentinel-6 is also another different type of satellite, is a radar altimeter to measure change in global sea level. Then we will have the new generation of satellite that will be launched in the next few years. Maybe you wrote this information in the previous week on the media. And this type of satellite will provide always more data, more precise data, and real-time data. So just one word on the next generation to show some new data to which we will have access with this new satellite. For example, we will have data on CO2. We will have high quality on soil, drought level or moisture level. We will have high quality data on forest, on snow, on polar ice, etc., etc. So in the next few years, until 2030, for sure, we will be able to produce more and more services with satellite data. However, today, Copernicus is already very widely used. One of the reasons is that it's free all around the world. We count 705,000 of registered users, 62,400,000 of published products, and 550 petabytes of download. It's a ready mine of information, allowing the production of valuable information on the health of the Earth. So just one slide, a little bit technique, because this valuable information is a result of a treatment pipeline. Indeed, space data as raw data can be exploited as this. For example, we must clean the image to remove clouds. We must correct the distortion linked to the shooting angle. In most of cases, we need to combine several images to cover the area corresponding to the need. We can combine also several types of data from space, etc., etc. So some of these tools are supplied by the Copernicus infrastructure, but these treatments are specific of space data, and we need specific skill to use them. The second part of the pipeline implement IT skills. For example, with machine learning, we can learn first, then recognize type of tree in the city, or with modelization, we can identify the source of greenhouse gases, or which neighborhood is warmer than the other. But you, as city managers, you will use the final product, allowing to take decisions or to monitor the performance of your action plan already implemented. I have finished with Earth observation, and now I'm going to talk about positioning or navigation system. Galileo. So Galileo is a satellite positioning system set up by the European Union. Probably you know better the American system, the GPS. Maybe you have also heard about the Chinese system called Beidou, or the Russian one called GLONASS. But Galileo is the most precise satellite navigation system, possessing meter level accuracy, and available anywhere in the world. And we must not forget also something very important for its use. Galileo is under civilian control when others are operated by military. Galileo is also saving lives, relaying distress calls for search and rescue. Galileo supplies also PRS, a secure service for government, European government. Today, we use Galileo every day with our mobile or our car, and it would be very difficult to imagine the life without it. There is 2 billion of users around the globe. So concerning the navigation system, only one little bit technical also slide. Galileo is a constellation of 24 satellites, and we need at least 3 satellites in visibility to be able to know our position. That's to say 3 coordinates, altitude, longitude, and latitude. Sometimes we don't have enough satellite in visibility because of building, mountain, or other disturbing topics. But that's why we lose the signal where we are not able to note the position, but it exists methods to improve precision, reliability, or availability of navigation service. For example, maybe you heard also about EGNOS. It is a navigation system for aircraft. It's based on Galileo and use a complementarity system to guarantee the positioning of the aircraft. That is a very critical system. So as Copernicus is thinking of its future, I mentioned just before with the new generation of satellite of Sentinel, ESA is also thinking of the future of such system. I'm going to list only 3 future improvements. For example, ESA has recently launched the order for extra satellite in lower orbit to improve performance for dedicated regions. I would say privileged regions. ESA envisage also new performance satellite for polar area where ionosphere makes signal less reliable. And the last one, a little bit fun, will allow to be positioning on the moon. So now with this slide, I would want just to highlight how this type of system allows the implementation of plenty of service in a plenty of domain, not only in transport or cartography. For example, in agriculture, Galileo supports precision farming. It could also be used to manage festival or massive events. In the domain of health and sport, satellite system-based tracking device between the shoulder blades of French rugby players help safeguard their health by identifying high force impacts that might trigger concussion. In the domain of energy, we use SatNav to power grids, giving a sense of place and time to provide early warning of potentially dangerous electricity network failure. The system is more and more used. The system is also more and more secure in terms of cybersecurity. And that's why it will be used soon for autonomous driving and shipping. And also it's already used in drones. For sure, the Galileo opens the door for plenty new services. So I have finished with my presentation. Thank you for your attention. I leave the floor to Alain, I think.
Thank you, Sylvie, for the excellent overview. Yeah, as I said, we will ask questions in a minute later. I've seen already a few popping into the chat, but the panel discussion will do so. So yeah, please, Alain, the floor is yours. Okay, so you are the next presenter. Sylvie, if you could stop sharing, that would be great, your screen, so Alain can take over.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Sylvie. That was a great presentation to see the space capabilities we have in Europe. So now that we've discovered and rediscovered rediscovered the space technologies, I would like to present what are these technologies used for. Can you see my screen?
Yes, if you could just maximize, then perfect.
Yes, might be better. So yeah, now we know the technologies that are available thanks to the European Union, and those are made. Why do we send satellites by the European Union? It's mainly to use the data that Sylvie already began to speak about. So those data are used in what we call space-based solutions. And space-based solutions actually benefit all actors of the European economy. There are figures about that. People can use space data even though there are foundations, NGOs, public bodies like you, but also global firms. And even within the group of public bodies like you are, all the scales of public authorities benefit from space data. So at the very large scale, international organizations like UN agencies are already using space data, but also national ministries are also big users of space data. And that's the focus of today's presentation. Regional and local authorities can benefit from space data. And that's what we will try to show you today. So the most common thing between all public authorities, regardless of your territory's size, is the policymaking process, at least in a democratic context. So this slide is about, it aims to show you that space data can intervene all along the process at specific steps. So of course, at the very beginning, when you try to identify a challenge that your public authority face, space can help identify the challenge. So, and sometimes it's the only way to identify a challenge. For example, a challenge related to the building's roofs. The only way to see it is from the sky. Then in the problem analysis, space data is very useful because it can be complementary to other types of data. And space data, the main feature of space data is to localize, is to position data on a map or on your territory. And then it's a very interesting tool to prioritize your policy action, because in a context of limited budgets, public bodies need to prioritize their policy action, and some parts of your territory might need more urgent action than others. Then space data is also helpful in assessing the policy options that you have, because space data also integrate forecasts, and you can, for example, simulate an option that you want to try with space data. And then at the very end of the policymaking process, and that's where space data is mostly used right now, it's space helps to monitor your policy implementation. And at the very end, it helps you to report to elected officials, to the public, and to evaluate your policy. So on the right, you can see some of the EU legal constraints or legislations that can apply to your public body. Some of them are related to energy, mobility, or environment in general. And all of those have in common that space data can play a great role to put them in place. So now that we've seen a very broad role of space data in the policymaking process, I also want to stress that space data has a very broad range of applications. So as an example, I chose to present the urban agenda for the EU, which is an initiative of more than 10 years, in which cities have identified some of their biggest challenges. So we can basically say that those challenges cover a lot of what urban environment face today. And out of those 18 challenges that were identified, which are called partnerships, at least 12 of those can be tackled or addressed with the help of space data. So the other ones can benefit from space data too, but in a more indirect way. And you can see that those challenges are of very different nature. Some of them are environmental, like air quality. Some of them are more social, like housing, and other ones are mobility related. And I just want to stress that on the top right, there is one which is called security in public spaces. And that's that's the closest one to the scope of our project. Because of course we would love to address all of those challenges for cities, but it's I mean, we have 3 years and we have to choose a scope for the project, and that's where we go to the public space management, which was chosen as the main topic of the project. And here we would love to give an introductory definition of a public space. The EU has worked on it, the UN has worked on it, and we can say that it's a publicly owned space, or that has to be accessible and open to everyone, and especially without a profit motive. So main definitions distinguish 3 types of public spaces. So of course there are streets, which main function is to help or to allow people to move, people or vehicles or other types of transportation modes. The second type is public open spaces. So it's those are places usually made to enjoy an environment or a location. The third one are public urban facilities. So in most of definitions, publicly run buildings and facilities are considered public spaces. So all of these, if you're interested, or if you know challenges related to all of these places in your city or region, SPACE4Cities can help, and we would love to hear your feedback on those challenges. So now about those challenges, we'll see. So Sylvie presented EO, so Earth observation data, and we'll see very briefly how those challenges related to public spaces are addressed currently by the market. So EUSPA, the European Agency for the Space Program, released a report where they introduced all the segments. That's how they call the market divided parts, and most of them can tackle public space challenges, but there are some that are more directly usable to public spaces challenges. So for EO, the main asset of EO data is about climate and environment and biodiversity, because as you've seen with the urban agenda, SPACE4Cities, public spaces, sorry, are mainly addressed by a security perspective. And in SPACE4Cities, we have a holistic approach of public spaces, and public spaces also face environmental challenges or climate adaptation challenges. Then the second segment is about typically urban challenges, like protecting cultural heritage or managing streetlights, etc. But Juho-Pekka will present some of the use cases. And at the very bottom of the slide, you can see the value chain of the whole EO data economy, just to show you that, to show you where the data comes from and the actors involved.
And now 1 more minute, please.
Yeah, the GNSS data is the data produced by Galileo, which Sylvie presented. So here again, it's not about monitoring a state of the territory, but more monitoring the flows happening in your city. So most of the applications relate to road or mobility or rail, etc. Some of the use cases that might or might not be addressed by the public buyers in SPACE4Cities. So you can see the diversity of space applications. And I want to stress that in this part in the middle of the circles, EO and GNSS data can be combined. And that will be my last message, because space data is still data. So the principles of the data economy also apply to space data, which means that data is always best used when it's combined to other types of data or other technologies. And that's the same with space. If you combine space data with acoustic data or the data you have available in your city or region, which usually are unique, we would love to make the most out of it, I think.
Okay, thank you, Alain. Very good. Can I now hand over to JP for the last talk? So if you could unshare. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just get my share going. Let's see. So you should now see the slide.
Okay.
I trust that everything is in order. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Juho-Pekka Virtanen from Forum Virium Helsinki, so a colleague of Renske and a member of our data team. And this presentation pretty much starts off directly from where Alain brilliantly left us. So I'm trying to basically two things. Firstly, look at how spaceborne or satellite-based Earth observation resonates with current geospatial data in cities and current surveying methods that are used in the cities. And then also show a little practical example of how this looks like or how this might look like. But let's get started. So cities currently use several different methods for mapping the urban environment. These are from different platforms, so mounted on an airplane, mounted on a car, drone, or even a walking person. There are different sensor types, so laser scanners or LiDAR, cameras, etc., etc. And more and more of these sensors are also being installed to the urban environment. So we have things like traffic monitoring LiDAR popping up in the cities. If we look at the properties of these systems in more detail, this is a complex slide. We won't go through every part of it. We can see that they vary a lot. So if we look at how large areas can be covered, there are big differences between different sensor systems. The same thing when we look at the level of detail we can get with these. and also how often it's feasible to do the mapping. These are, of course, simplifications, so they always vary from a specific application to another. There are also big differences in what the sensors see, so what type of data they produce, and especially what kind of a spectral coverage they have. So whether they only see in color, only see in grayscale, or actually have more spectral bands. And of course, understandably, also the operating conditions requirements vary. So for some systems, carrying out the mapping is more complex than others. And since we're working from different platforms, of course, also the viewpoint of the sensor systems is different. So whether you're looking at the world from a top down from an airplane or from a pedestrian viewpoint. And as comparison, I've also included sort of a rude characterization of satellite-based Earth observation there. And the conclusion of this slide is that there's no clear winner. So it's obvious that it's very application dependent which technologies are most suited. In addition to all of this surveying that's being done in the cities, there's also, of course, a big collection of existing urban geodata. So cities have base maps and registries. Many of these are actually mandated by law. And a lot of this is two-dimensional vector format geodata. So objects, features, their properties. And because many of these are connected to registries, it's a lot about data that's combined into the object geometry. A lot of this data is also offered as open data, sometimes even by mandate, and fortunately, often over standardized interfaces. So if you want to use two-dimensional geodata from cities, you can expect to encounter very similar interfaces from one city to another. And of course, since this is surveying, it's usually in a known coordinate system. So then we have ways to combine it with other data. I'll give a little practical example now. So we jump into Helsinki. This is actually an aerial image of a park in downtown Helsinki, very close to the Audi library. And overlaid on the image, we can actually see the polygon from a city GIS. So this is in a way very much the image that the city has of the park, and this is the latest one they have. So it's from the summer of 2023. Of course, the park doesn't really look like this now. So if we think about what's there at the moment, this is data from Sentinel-2 satellite. So this is from a couple of weeks ago when the slides were being prepared. We can see that as it's still relatively early spring in Helsinki, some of the water bodies are still frozen, and even the park is partially covered in snow. There's quite a big difference, and this kind of highlights some of the properties of satellite-based data. So if this is the latest image that is available from airborne photography, and this is the real situation. Of course, as we have a good data flow coming from the Copernicus system, we can also look at other times of the year. So for comparison, then this is from summer. So now it's a lot closer to what we had in the aerial photo. We can see that the resolution is different. And we can, for comparison, also take an image from the winter time. So this is from the 7th of January. This was a very snowy winter in Helsinki. So we can see that the park is fully covered. We can also see how the light is coming from an extreme direction. It's dark in the Nordics. And we can look at the seasonal change between these two sets of time. As I said, satellite systems also give us a broad amount of other data than just the RGB channels. So we can also look at things like the vegetation index, for example. Here's a small example. This is from the winter time. And if we compare the vegetation index of the park to the neighboring areas, we can see that there isn't much difference. And it's explained, of course, since it's winter, so there's not much not much green vegetation observable. If we compare this to an image from summertime, it's very different. So there we can see that the vegetation index of the park is definitely much higher than the surrounding railroad, for example, or many of the urban areas. So we can not only just visually observe the change, but we can also see the change, for example, in the terms of vegetation. And this brings us to the closing slide, and I'll make a few remarks of the key learnings. So based on this, we can clearly say that different mapping methods that we have in the city, which there are many, are clearly not competing, and ideally not competing, but more complementing. And it's a lot about finding the best combination of different data sources per application. So happy to say that we definitely need projects like this to support this. And then also existing geodata and these new data sources such as the Copernicus are very different in nature. So we have static 2D polygons and frequent imagery, for example, but they could also complement each other quite nicely, for example, for monitoring. And if we do this by data integration, I agree with Alan very much that it creates benefit and value, so that ideally we don't even have to necessarily map the features from a low resolution data, but we can just check their state. So this might even give us some more applications. And also, if we as humans can see these changes, then we can also assume that we can train a neural network to do so. So there is even potential for automation. But with these thoughts, I now leave you. That should have been about 9 minutes. So thank you, Alan. Thank you, Alex. And I guess we move on towards the discussion bits, if I'm not completely mistaken.
Yes. Yeah, thanks so much, JP. But we'll have a 5 more minutes of some questions. I think if all the speakers could now turn on the camera, that would be great. And maybe Ari, there were a few questions maybe that you observed in the chat. If you could sort of like bring this forward to the panel.
Sure. There were 2 questions, and the first one is from Buen, asking, is there a way to prevent GPS spoofing?
So, I don't know, Sylvie maybe, or Alain, I think it may be a question on some of the satellite technologies. Sylvie?
Yes. Yes, as I tried to explain at the beginning, there is way to tackle this type of issue by ground antenna or new satellite.
So there are new satellites currently being deployed that can overcome the issue, and also by some use of ground antenna technologies. Yeah.
And especially in the cities, because there is a lot of building, there are a lot of ground antenna.
So yeah, so thank you. Maybe Ari, any other questions that you might pick up?
Yeah, sure. Then Visruth was asking, is there is the open source Copernicus data already corrected for cloud distortion? So the data available from the Copernicus, so is the data already corrected for cloud distortion?
Maybe I can answer.
Yes.
Copernicus image are already on cloud, and all tools are built to run on cloud too.
I think the question was about that, like when you are sensing the ground with the Copernicus satellites, and there can be like clouds blocking the view. So is there the satellite mosaic that is then done? So are they like
cloud? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Proper clouds in the sky, I think.
Yes, it's cloud in the sky.
Yeah.
Yes, some type of sensor as a radar sensor don't care of clouds. But optical image needs to be clean. If there is not too much cloud, we can use the image, but otherwise we have to use later image or different image like radar image.
Cool. Okay, and maybe we can pick one more. Ari, possible?
Yeah, I think there was an interesting question from Miika Kostamo. And he was asking what kind of new skills cities should develop to utilize more of the opportunities remote sensing data from European satellites offer. So what kind of new skills cities should adopt in order to use satellites?
This may be something for JP to comment on. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I was actually writing a reply to Visruth at the same time, but I'll do that later. So yeah, in respect to new skills, yeah, it's likely that some skills are needed, but I was also personally happy to discover that the Copernicus data space ecosystem is doing brilliant work in bringing this data to a more easily available format. See, this also partially answers to Visruth's question that there are even in standard OGC interfaces now to request Copernicus images as map layers, which are then already distortion corrected, and they don't have cloud masks, but you can filter them based on the overcast percentage. So you have a way to retrieve the most cloud-free images for a certain period of time, for example. So this is radically, in a way, how should I put it? I hope that it is removing the obstacles from using satellite data quite fast, and it's also making it a very interesting time for our project that we have these technical enablers that are popping up from the ecosystem.
Exactly. I think, yeah, Renske.
I just wanted to add to that, so that it's maybe even more about, so not as much the technical skills as more the that we need to learn what satellite data, how it can help us cities. So what can a city do with this type of data? So in that respect, it's also very nice to refer to the upcoming webinars where we will talk more about that, right? So what could be the benefits? So it's also learning, I think, about that.
Exactly.
But you were probably, Alex, talking about that too.
Yeah, I know. Yes. So basically, I think you're right. So in essence, a lot of the complexity can be hopefully taken away through new innovations and innovations that we might procure as well through SPACE4Cities. And so I know the Q&A was a little bit short today, but obviously please feel free to keep in touch with us, and we're happy to engage with you offline as well. Just wanted to draw your attention as well to a series of upcoming webinars where we get experts from the market presenting actually case studies of how they can solve or help solve some of the challenges that cities are facing. So please keep this in your diary. The registration link is already open for the first webinar, and we will publish shortly a very detailed agenda about this. I think knowing that we are like now at 2 p.m. CET, I just wanted to thank you all for joining in this session. I wanted to thank the speakers. So let's give them a virtual clap for the presentations. And I hope that you will join us in one of our upcoming seminars. Okay, yeah, thanks so much, and have a good rest of the weekend. Happy Easter ahead.